Okay, ready.
Take two.
Catherine, can you tell me a bit about your background?
Yeah, I come from quite an unsettled background. I was born in South Africa. I moved quite a lot as a young girl with my dad. He moved around a lot, and then I left home at 16. My family were mainly atheists. I was quite a bitter person. I was harbouring a lot of unforgiveness towards family members. I'd become very angry at the world. I felt like the world owed me something. I wasn't a nice person. I actually had an alcohol problem. I used to drink alcohol to numb all the pain that I was feeling from things that had happened to me and things that I'd done. I had quite a rocky relationship with my real mother. I hadn't grown up with her, and she found me when I was 24 on Facebook and invited me to go and meet all my family in South Africa one Christmas. That was in 2009. So I went over to meet them, and I met. When I went out there, I had a very bad attitude towards them. I thought, you owe me big time, you left me when I was younger. I was very bitter towards my mum, and I treated my mum and my sister and their family quite badly while I was there. While I was out in South Africa, I fell pregnant after a string of failed relationships. I met my son's father, and I left South Africa 4 months pregnant, coming back homeless without anything. Then I had my son in 2011, February 2011, and at that point I thought, there has to be a God, because I was so filled with love that I'd never experienced, and I just looked at him and I thought, there's more to life than this. Working, raising children to just turn into dust, and there'd be nothing more. So I started searching.
And what sort of people did you meet as you were searching?
Actually, I bumped into a lady I used to live with when I was 16, who used to talk to me about Jesus all the time. I ignored her, and I wasn't interested at all in what she was telling me about Jesus. But the Lord had placed her in my path at that point, and through her I had come into contact with a church who had given me a lot of practical help, furnishing a flat for me because I didn't have any furniture, and providing me with a lot of stuff for the baby I was about to have and things like that. So yeah, and then I was invited to a Mother's Day service, which I went along to. At this point I was receiving counselling for things that had happened, and I desperately wanted to be a good mother, and so I was seeking help from a counsellor who was half Buddhist and half spiritualist. And so I was searching, and I very nearly went to a spiritualist church, but thankfully the Lord was at work before that I managed to. And having gone to this Mother's Day service, I got invited to a Christian festival called Creation Fest. And we went along. My son was 5 months old. We camped for 3 days, and while there I got speaking to a guy about a spiritualist church, and he'd shared with me his experience of a spiritualist church. While speaking to him, I saw a vision of a demon quite clear in front of my face, and I took that as a warning from God. I just knew in my heart that was a warning to stay away from a spiritualist church. So after that I went to a seminar on joy, and in my heart I knew what I wanted was joy. And so I went to buy a Bible, and I asked my friend if I could go to church with her on that Sunday after we left Creation Fest, and she took me along. And then while we were at church, I couldn't tell you what the sermon was about. I just know that they asked if anybody wanted prayer after the sermon, and I found myself crying uncontrollably and moving towards the front. And when somebody asked me, what would you like prayer for, the only word I could say was guidance. And then they said, well, have you accepted Jesus into your heart? I said, not yet. No, I haven't, I said. And they said, would you like to do that now? And I said, yes. And so on the 14th of August 2011, I gave my heart to Jesus.
You said you were searching for joy.
Yes, yeah. I had, I think my past was quite miserable, and I think I was searching for joy. I knew I was miserable, and I think I was miserable because I was unforgiving and holding on to resentment. And
so have you found joy?
I have, yes, and I think it's been a process. And if I think back to one example where I experienced release, was when the Lord had highlighted to me my attitude in going out to meet my family in South Africa, and he'd asked me to write a letter of apology to my mum and my sister because I had treated them quite badly. And while writing the letter, something happened. It was very real feeling. As I was writing, I'm sorry for how I treated you and how I behaved, and this was my attitude. The anger and hatred I felt towards my mum and my sister, just it left me, and it was so tangible. It felt like something had fallen off of me. And immediately after, I was filled with love from top to bottom for them. And since that day onwards, our relationships are just flourishing. And the Lord's continued to reconcile me to other members of my family too that I was estranged from. And that's all because I've been able to forgive through the power of Jesus, really.